You remember calls like these? Or these?
Oh my God! Send him to hell! You got to be kidding! It's Christian!
Okay, maybe not that one. Commentary used to be one of pro wrestling's biggest assets in the 1990s and 2000s, with legendary teams like Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler, Taz and Michael Cole, and Mike Tenay and Don West in TNA. But now, commentary is a bit bland. Not coming for anyone in particular, but like many things in wrestling over the past 20 years, commentary has kind of lost its edge, and that's not just a WWE criticism, although they are the biggest perpetrator in a lot of this. So how do we go from so much personality and storytelling with commentary to flat and uninspired? Well, today we're analyzing why wrestling commentary doesn't hit like it used to. You got a favorite wrestling commentary team, by the way? Put them in the comments. Wrestling commentary in the early days was pretty buttoned up, as you can imagine. The territory days with companies like NWA, AWA, studio-produced wrestling with official sounding commentators delivering almost comically formal transcontinental accent type delivery. You remember that stuff? That was back in the day. But then came the transition to the WWE Attitude Era, and everything changed. And in my mind, a standout from the 1990s that moved commentary into its next era for Attitude was Joey Styles from ECW. He pioneered being a sole commentator, inspiring a generation of over-the-top reactions. His passionate, almost manic energy showed that wrestling announcers didn't have to be stuffy sports broadcasters like they were. They could be losing their minds just like the audience was, which in turn would help tell a story. So now in the 90s and the 2000s, we got Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler as a team, the greatest commentary duo of all time, in my opinion. Jim Ross once compared announcing to, quote, providing lyrics for the music being played inside the ring, and that's exactly what they did. So what made JR and King so great? Three things: genuine chemistry, clearly defined roles, and most importantly, they had distinct personalities that made them sound like actual people. Fancy that. JR was the passionate play-by-play guy who made everything feel important with an occasional bar for Triple H. While Jerry Lawler was the perfect heel color commentator who could get heat on the heels while saying something completely unhinged, probably about puppies. I mean, just listen to these goofs during a Skittles ad.
Delicious, delicious, fruity, fruity, oh, they're fruity, they're Skittles.
They made anything fun. JR and King's partnership lasted through the Monday Night Wars, and they cemented their legacy, calling some of the Attitude Era's greatest moments. When they had arguments at the commentary desk, it felt real because their relationship behind the scenes translated to authentic on-screen banter. Clearly, they had a good relationship outside of work that they brought into work, and it was awesome. What people might often forget, though, is that great commentary thrived during actual competition. When WWE and WCW were fighting for viewers every Monday night, both companies pushed their announce teams to be distinctive and memorable. On the other side of the fence, WCW had Tony Schiavone alongside Mike Tenay and Bobby Heenan, creating a completely different style from WWE. Schiavone's voice was as vital to WCW's product during the Monday Night Wars as Jim Ross's was to WWE. Each company had its own commentary identity because they were trying to differentiate themselves, and rightfully so. Competition forced innovation. Each announce team had to find ways to make their product feel special and different from what viewers could get elsewhere on the other show. And then one of my favorites, TNA in the 2000s created another incredible team in former WCW commentator Mike Tenay and Don West. Don West is my guy. He brought some genuine edginess to the TNA product with his auctioneer background and unfiltered enthusiasm. The energy was absolutely infectious. You believed that Don West was just as surprised by what was happening as you were, and it happened a lot.
Somebody get some help!
He was a great voice in commentary. R.I.P. The beginning of the end for this golden era, though, came in 2008 when JR got drafted to SmackDown in what felt like a corporate decision designed to try something new and break up the team. JR was visibly upset, stating he hadn't been informed of the decision beforehand and found out at the draft special, just like everybody else. I mean, I think they should have told him Boomer sooner. Sorry. But this wasn't just about splitting up a team, though. It represented WWE's shift towards treating commentary as interchangeable corporate chess pieces rather than essential storytelling elements that they were in the years prior. It was clear at that time that Michael Cole took over as WWE's primary voice then as the head of Raw, and while he's actually quite talented and I love him, he was stepping into an impossible situation. he was immediately compared to one of the greatest announcers in wrestling history, but more importantly, he was working in a completely different system. And he didn't really get his flowers till much later. The Vince McMahon era that followed the 2008 draft became notorious for heavily scripted commentary. Announcers had Vince himself screaming in their ears, telling them exactly what to say, when to say it. The spontaneous reactions that made classic commentary special became impossible when every word was vetted, and even more than usual than in the past. Not to mention the lists of banned words like pro wrestling being produced for the shows of that era. Funny enough, Michael Cole was even named Worst Television Announcer by Wrestling Observer 4 years in a row from 2009 to 2012. But that wasn't entirely his fault, in my opinion. He was working with a system that decided to prioritize corporate messaging over authentic emotion. You can see how much better he's done when the reins have been taken off. And speaking of, since Triple H took over creative, WWE commentary has actually loosened up considerably. There's been a noted difference in Michael Cole's work, as I said earlier. Working alongside Pat McAfee has reportedly increased his enthusiasm, and he's not as restricted as he once was. I mean, I'm not really a big Pat McAfee guy, but that much he adds at least. But even with this newfound freedom, it's hard to compare anything nowadays to what we had in the 90s and the 2000s. Why? Because the fundamental approach to commentary has changed. Modern wrestling commentary prioritizes technical accuracy and corporate brand messaging over storytelling and emotion. It's pretty clear to see that. Announcers like Joe Tessitore are extremely skilled broadcasters, do not get me wrong, but they approach wrestling like they're calling Monday Night Football rather than creating larger-than-life characters and moments. The three-person commentary teams that are now standard in some companies also sometimes dilute individual personalities. When you have three people trying to get their points across, nobody really stands out at the end of the day. The classic two-person dynamic allowed for clear roles, one passionate storyteller, and one personality-driven color commentator. Even in AEW, which prides itself on being different, the commentary often feels safe and calculated from a primary lens. Tony Schiavone's presence helps bring that WCW nostalgia. Taz, of course, commentary Jones over here, but the overall approach is still very robotic, and I'm a wrestling announcer from one Excalibur. I think he's very talented, little too broadcasty for my taste. What we fundamentally lost as a TV audience is commentators as characters in their own right. Jerry Lawler wasn't just calling matches, he was a heel character who had feuds with actual wrestlers. Jim Ross wasn't just describing action in the ring, he was the moral center who made you care about what was happening and what that doggone son of a bitch Triple H was doing. Gone are the days, mostly, of storylines involving actual commentators. Remember when Jerry Lawler had legitimate heat with wrestlers? When Jim Ross became part of storylines? When commentators should show genuine surprise based off of those storylines? You don't really see it that much anymore. Modern announcers are there to guide you through the product, mention sponsors, and hit talking points, rather than making you emotionally invested in what's happening. That's the big difference between sports commentary and pro wrestling commentary. The art of making moments feel bigger than they actually are has been lost, in my opinion. Gorilla Monsoon's "The irresistible force meets the immovable object" for Hogan vs. Andre is still quoted today. When was the last time a modern commentary call became part of wrestling folklore? I genuinely don't remember. Maybe this one?
Oh, speak, bitch. Come on now. Oh my gosh, Schiavone. What the hell is wrong with you?
And by the way, there are wickedly talented people in wrestling commentary today that I like. Corey Graves, Wade Barrett, Nigel McGuinness, Mauro Ranallo when he was in WWE, but they're all working within systems that value consistency over memorability. So yeah, commentary is looser now than it was during the peak Vince McMahon micromanagement era. Pat McAfee bringing some authenticity to WWE shows what's possible when announcers are allowed to actually be themselves, even though I do think he's a giant cornball. And Tony Schiavone's AEW renaissance proves that veteran commentators can still make magic when given freedom. But even with this looseness, it's impossible to recapture what made the 90s and 2000s commentaries special. The wrestling business itself has changed. It's more corporate, more focused on mainstream appeal, and more afraid of genuine controversy. That same feeling we had with JR and King is unlikely to ever return because it was born out of a perfect storm. Passionate personalities, real competition, and business that prioritized emotional investment. Wrestling commentary today is technically proficient, but emotionally pretty sterile. It informs rather than inspires, describes rather than elevates. The announcers are better broadcasters than ever before right now, but they're worse at storytelling than really anybody before them, aside from a good few. Unless wrestling companies decide they'd rather have legendary moments than ESPN types, we'll continue getting competent commentary that nobody's gonna remember 5 years from now. So what do you think? Can wrestling commentary ever recapture its golden age magic in today's corporate environment? or not? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that
Oooo Chavo.